Okay, bad news. The handle for my Ninebot broke. Good news, my replacement one came in. There's not a lot of literature that I found online, barely any for that matter, with regards to how to properly replace the handle. The bracket for it is here, but the actual handle itself broke. So, you know, it slips right through the pin. I have a completely new handle setup. The one write-up that I found online suggested that the entire case, both front and back, has to be split apart. I'm hoping that's not the case. I think in the write-up he didn't have 90-degree angle Allen keys like I do. And my goal is to hopefully split half of this down. I'm gonna show you how to do that. I've done this once before. And then use a 90-degree angle tool hopefully to get in there to loosen the hex nuts that hold down the bracket for the handle. So, to start with, we're going to need a screwdriver, flathead screwdriver. And the first thing we have to do is replace the light ring, or remove the light ring. And we do that by gently prying it off, which I hate doing because anytime you're dealing with clips and stuff like that, it gets a little hairy. You don't want to crack a clip or anything. But this is how it's all held together. I'm just going to gently do it. I'm not ham-handing it or anything. Come on. Okay. And I'm just going to gently put that over here for now. With that off, the next thing we'll do is we're going to remove the pedal assembly. To do that, we're going to need one Allen key here. I don't know the size. It's one of the smaller ones. And what that does is a tiny little hole right here on the bottom. Okay, the Allen key's gonna go in here. And it's gonna loosen a screw. We're not gonna take that screw out though. There's no need to take the screw out. We're just gonna take it out enough, or budge it out enough. We're gonna put this over here. So we can remove the pin. That pin is held in by compression. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna use the same flathead screwdriver. You can use anything for that matter. And I'm gonna put the flathead up against the pin and just gently love tap it out. Again, no need to swing like a monster here. That's the pin. And then there's gonna be two plastic bushings that goes in between the pedal assembly and the pin itself, or the bracket. What I will do, because you don't want to lose any of this stuff, I'm just gonna put the pin back in. Okay. Okay. And I'll put this over here. And the screw is still inside the bracket down here. And we'll put that over here. So this is part of the frame that ultimately holds in the pedal assembly. Now we have that. We have to start removing some screws. Let's get a proper bit for that. Last time I used a bit that really didn't cooperate too much. Let's see if I can find one. Let's see if this digs into it better. Nope, that doesn't dig into it. These. Nope. I may not have a bit that oh, there we go. That one works. All right. I don't want to strip any of the heads here, so what I'm going to do, and here we go. And we're just going to remove these screws. Super important. If you're removing 5 screws, make sure you put 5 screws back on. We don't want extra parts. Extra parts mean you did something wrong here. We want to avoid that. I've got a little magnet here. And I just put the screws on the magnet so I don't lose them, or you know, if I step up or whatever, I don't want to accidentally kick them across the room. And here we go. I'm using a different screwdriver. I'll use the other one. All right, and this part's pretty self-explanatory. We're just going to go around and remove the screws that we have visible to us. The cool thing about the Ninebot, this is my first electric unicycle, and as you can see, it's pretty scratched up. I mean, from learning and whatnot, it's hit the tarmac quite a few times. I mean, these things are built like tanks, but all the plastic showpieces, like you see here, they've looked better in the past. So eventually, once I get to a point where you know, I'm really good, I'll replace all these fairings and it's gonna look brand new again. It doesn't make sense to do it just yet. This piece is held in. We're just gonna tuck your fingers in and just pop it up. There's an adhesive It's held in again, it clips in, but there's an adhesive there also. My suggestion, don't touch it, don't get dirt on it, don't do anything that's gonna weaken the property of the adhesive, okay? I'm just gonna, again, just put that over there so it's safe and out of the way. Before I continue, there's 2 screws up here. And what this is in this door houses the battery. Anytime you're doing anything and you've got access to remove the battery, anytime you're taking something apart, remove the battery, unplug it. It's just good practice. You probably find that in most cases, anything electrical would probably appreciate that. And here you go, this piece comes out. And I'm just gonna put this upside down over here. It's a little out of frame there. And drop my 2 screws in there like a little cup. Here is the battery. This is what gives power to the motor for your Ninebot. It's held in by 2 connectors. And the good thing about these connectors, they only go in one way. Okay, we're gonna remove 1 and remove 2. If you notice, I'm not yanking on them or plugging them, I'm just taking my time with it and backing them out slowly. These connectors cannot go back in the wrong way, all right? It's not an omnidirectional connector, it only goes in one way. Again, just gently set this guy aside. Not that it's a bomb or anything, but it is a lithium polymer battery and they're not to be fooled around with. We're almost there actually. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 screws right here. Oh, Allen keys here, and they have washers. This is the wrong, and it's conveniently, this thing comes to magnet. That's pretty neat. I don't know why they did that. It's a little bizarre, but I'm glad they did it. This looks like it's the right one. And let's see. It may not be right. Nope, it's not right. I think last time I had to do that, I was missing the key that was required, and I had to resort to using this set. So let's see. Unfortunately, yeah, this is the one. I can't give you sizes here of what key to use and whatnot, but use your head. If it doesn't fit right, don't force it. You don't want to, you know, hollow out the insert. And we're going to take 1, 2, 3, 4. Careful that you don't lose the washers, little washers that this comes with. You want to use those. You don't want to lose that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And I'm just using the magnet as a placeholder so I don't lose my hardware. Again, I'm taking 4 screws out. You want to put 4 screws back. You know what I mean? Having extra parts, people laugh about that. It's sloppy work. You don't want to lose parts. Alright. So it's the compression. Okay, good. So 1, 2, 3. Oh, 1, 2, and here's number 3. Alright. That magnet's pretty strong, actually. This teardown procedure is also applicable for when you are changing the inner tube on your Ninebot, which unfortunately I will have to be doing soon as well. I thought I was going to get lucky and just have to patch the tube, but unfortunately it's not a compromise in the rubber. It's a compromise in the valve itself, or the stem, not even the valve, it's the stem. I went to my local bike shop, and he actually had a few other Ninebot people that apparently have had similar problems. I guess it's a casting issue or whatever else it is. All right, as you have guessed, this is all held in by clips now at this point as well. We're going to remove 1, 2. These are numbered 1 and 2. They will plug back in if you don't use the same exact plug. Top tip, if you're riding your Ninebot and the LED is not coinciding with the direction you're going in, you've got those plugs backwards. They'll still light up, but as you go forward, the light ring will reflect backwards, and if you go backwards, it'll reflect forward. Just switch those 2 connectors around, and that should solve that problem for you. The first time I put mine back, that's what happened. So before you seal it all up, you just want to make sure you know, that's all correct. Okay. Here we go. This all unsnaps. 1, 2. All right. And now this piece is out. All right. I'm just going to gently set this aside out of frame. And what we're presented with, more screws. This is the reason why these things are built like tanks. You see the hardware that holds this all together? It's really amazing. At first you look at it And you go, it's all plastic. And guess what? Underneath all that plastic is tons of hardware that is all behind, guarding a bunch of heavy metal. And you're gonna see that in a second as well. If you've never seen the inside of one of these. Nothing exciting here. We're just gonna be one by one removing these screws and gently setting those aside. Don't wanna lose them. And again, just like anything, I'm not, you know, I'm not ratcheting at this. I'm not throwing crazy pounds of torque at it. Just backing them off one by one. Okay. And we're gonna try to follow that same procedure when we put everything back together. We're not looking to cross thread anything or, you know, hollow out the insert of these screws here. We don't want that. It's a little intimidating when you first see this, but the reality is these are actually quite serviceable. This is my first one, and if you are fairly confident with working with your hands, you definitely don't need an engineering degree to crack one of these open. You just need a little patience and use your noggin. We have 2 more to go. Unfortunately, it's raining here big time, so I don't have the opportunity to ride. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to repair. So when the weather does permit, I can ride and hopefully have my new handle. I don't know if this is even going to work. I might take this all apart and realize that it might be beyond my capability. We're going to find out together. Okay. Again, kind of held in with clips. We want to be careful with the wiring here. And I'm just going to back this all up because everything slips into here. And I don't want to yank it or anything. I just want to back it off. There we go. And there we go. All right. So what do we have here? This is the last part of the outer frame. It is, well, I'll tell you this much. If you've got 90-degree Allen keys, I think it's serviceable without having to crack this thing both ways. I've never cracked the other side of this, but from what I've read, and I could have read it wrong, or it could have been written wrong, it's a little bit more involved. I have all the air out of my tire. This gives me plenty of wiggle room. I'm going to take the camera off the mount for a second and show you what we're working with. Okay. All right. This is what we've got. So up, focus. Okay. Up here. The camera's going to pick that up. Tucked up in that little cavity, there's 3 screws that basically look similar to one of these guys. It's got a bigger opening, it's going to require a different Allen key. But from what it looks like, these 3 screws directly ratchet into this guy. Okay, let's take a look at what we have as a replacement part. Here is, directly from Ninebot, the replacement handle setup. This part's self-explanatory. There's the handle. On my handle, this whole piece just cracked straight in half. So it's shot. I don't even need to replace this piece, but I have it, so I might as well, right? It's all got to come apart regardless. Let me put this down for a sec. And let's see. Okay. And what this came with. Okay, cool. This is the pin, I presume. That, does this go through here? No, it does not. What do we have here? Well, this definitely goes here. And then there's a pin that ultimately goes through it all. How does that pin work? Let me figure this out. All right, so it looks as if this pin slips through the bracket here, and then it ultimately goes through the handle. I'm not convinced about how this is sitting though. So I'm gonna take the old bracket out and then compare it. So let's do that. Okay, this is where we're at. This sucks. This sucks a lot, but the hardware is out. It's 3 of these guys here. And it appears that they have some sort of like a Loctite from the factory on here. So when you're removing these things, it is hard. It's really hard. But with that out, this now comes out. So now I gotta mimic the orientation of the pin here and then place it all back. Yeah, there's all adhesive and stuff on here. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but... Alright, I'm gonna line this all up and we're gonna just reverse the process. Alright, so here we are. I figured it out. The pin that goes through the bracket, that's the old bracket there with the original pin still in there, okay? How the pin goes through, it actually comes apart. This pin is in pieces. So there's one piece. I presume this guy just unthreads somehow, some way. There it comes. It just slides out actually. It's like a sleeve. And then there you go. The crazy thing is there's no documentation for any of this stuff. So we're just kind of figuring it out as we go. So now the pin is in pieces. It should allow me the opportunity to slide it through the bracket with the handle in the bracket. We're getting closer. Okay, I'm at a point now where my pin, I had to disassemble the pin even more. The pin will go through the bracket, okay, which I can get through the handle. The trickery in all this is this guy will have to be somehow sandwiched in here, I guess, as we go through the handle. There's no way I'm going to do that and hold the camera at the same time. Gah. Okay, Eureka, the pin is through and it's not bound up. I got to put the end caps for the actual pin in right now. That's these pieces, these miscellaneous washers, and then ultimately that cap right there. And then that's it. Then we reverse the process, which I'm dreading. Alright, it's a bit of a funky angle. Let me try this. This is where we're at right now. The bracket is just thumb tightened in. But I did that just to see about fitment and make sure everything is correctly aligned. And I used my thumbs just to crank these guys down. And then I'm just going to get to it with the Allen keys now. I have a strong feeling going back together is going to be a little bit easier than taking it apart. It appears that there was Loctite or something that was on there, and it really, I mean, you really had to like put some effort into it to get these things apart. I'm going to tighten this all up now, and we'll see what happens next. Alright, I have to get the tube back on. If anyone's ever put the tube on a Ninebot, it sucks. The tube is the easy part actually. The tire, it is insane how tight the clearance is. Let me push the tube forward. Alright. I'm gonna have to... Actually, it might be easier if I take this whole thing out and do it that way. So I have less in my way. Backside first. Okay. If I remember right, putting the tire back on was a little bit easier than taking it off because you had a little more leverage using the wheel to kind of push against the tire. Still not easy though. I mean, this thing is on there tight. They're not playing around with this. I mean, everything about the Ninebot seems to be pretty tight. All the hardware and whatnot. It's not a second-rate item. And even though this stuff is kind of a pain in the neck to work on, I'll still say it is a serviceable unit. Maybe because this is on. There we go. Let's try to push back on this. Almost there. Come on. Look at this one chunk. Let's put up a fight. Ah, come on. Come on. Oh, so close, so close. There we go. All right, tires on. Halfway. Tube has to go on. I recommend, if you can, get this in a way, mind you, because the orientation of the valve stem itself. Make sure it's lined up with the hole. It'll make your job a little bit easier. Let me see if I can. Let's tuck this all in. And while I still have some leverage, I can go into the hole. In the hole. Let's see. No. This is gonna put up a fight. Okay. Come on. There we are. And it's just a matter of shimmying it a little bit and getting your fingers in there. Not the easiest thing in the world to do, but not impossible either. Probably help if I had no air in the tube. Okay, come on, you're getting there. All right, the stem is in. Now we just tuck the tube in. Alright, tube is in and it's not twisted. And there's the valve stem. I'm going to put my extension on here so there's no chance of it slipping back in. Alright, now let me tuck this part back in. And I just have my fingers underneath to make sure that I haven't dismounted on the other side of the wheel, because that would suck. Alright, and as we get closer, it gets a little bit tougher, but come on. How did I do this before? Did I use the levers? Don't remember. I don't know if levers are gonna help me here. I think I just took it inch by inch. Here, I got tools and stuff in my way. Come on. Like anything, once you get closer to the home stretch, it starts to put up a fight. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Boom. We're on. You know what? It would make sense, just for good measure. Let me throw a couple of pounds of air in here just to make sure it's all seated correctly and not funky. Okay, tires back on. 50 pounds of air. Let's start putting everything back together. And this is going to, before we plop it down, we're going to run all of our cabling, or wiring for that matter, through the provision in the case. So here is the connector for the LiPo. There's the other connector for the LiPo. And then we've got these two guys for the LED ring. Alright. right. And what we can do is, so we don't lose them, let's tuck these guys here. And you want to be mindful. These guys fall down there. You're going to have a heck of a time getting that back out once this case goes in. So just continually keep an eye on that. I'm just kind of plopping this all down. And we can start working our way backwards. So why don't we start doing, we'll work inside out. Nope. Nope. And nope. Okay. There we go. So I'm just gonna lightly start torquing this down, but I'm not threading anything. What's happening? Alright, am I not seeing it correctly? Let's try it again. Let's see. Start this one. You'll find once you get one or two of these guys all together, everything kind of just lines up at that point. And just being careful not to cross thread anything. Okay, and I'm not going to do my final torque down just yet. Just going to kind of work in an X here. No particular reason, just kind of seems to make sense. Kind of like putting a tire back on, right? Alright. Okay, and my last one. Alright. Okay. That goes right there for some unknown reason. Whoa. Alright, and then we're going to start cranking these down a little bit. Nothing crazy, just enough where it stops. Not looking to hear any creaking noises or cracking noises, you know. But you want this to be as tight and solid as possible also. Okay, there we go. I'm just going to go over once again. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Done. And that guy goes back on. And we can get this back on. It's a good feeling when your pile of parts that need to be put back on starts getting smaller and smaller. All right, that's that. Let's do, should we do the outer ring? No, we need to do the battery. Let's put the battery back on. Okay. And these plugs only go on one way. Okay, making sure the black is lined up to black, and then you get a little click. And once you get that click, you know it's locked in, it's not going anywhere. All right, and we're gonna put our battery cover back on. We left our hardware for that inside the cover. Good thinking. All right, and just being mindful of these two guys back here. We're going to drop that in. All right, and that's all tucked away accordingly. Let's get these screws on. All right. And okay, we're far enough in here where we could just make sure that we can turn it on. We're probably gonna get some beeps. No beeps. All right, good sign. It's always nice when it turns back on after you've taken it apart. Okay, let's get the outer ring back on. And this will go here. Oh, our connectors. Make sure I'm not pinching them like I almost did. Alright. And we can torque these down just a little bit more now, because we know we're not going back in there. Okay. So our cover's back on, nice and snug. Cool. Why do I feel like... You know what? I jumped the gun here, didn't I? I jumped the gun here. I'll tell you what I forgot to do. I got a little ahead of myself. We need... Okay. I've got to put all of our hardware back together over here. Not cool. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And those are the... 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the screws that we put on our magnet. Okay. And let's go to the next one. Okay. Last one. Oh, third one, not last one. Okay. Okay. And we got this guy. Okay. Let's go ahead and start tightening this down a little bit. Okay. Okay. Good. Great. of myself there for a second. Now, this go over here. Okay, what I can do before I do that, I can concentrate on putting my foot stand back together. So, easiest way to do that is you're gonna have to balance, kind of get like a bushing wedged in between here. Slip that through, like so, and then get a bushing over here. And kind of manage your way through there if you can. All right, and we're in. I'm just gonna love tap this once. Doesn't take much. Cool. And then we'll tighten up the key on the bottom. And that's the tiny key, isn't it? Or is this? No. Let's try this one. Success. All right. Good. And I'm just going to crank it down a little bit. Not too much. Okay. Just see something really quick. Make sure that's right. Yes. Okay, good. That's in. Good. Nice and tight. Last 4 screws. And then we test the light ring. And then we're done. Okay. All right. 1. 2. 3. And the last one is 4. Okay, let's crank these down. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, we're back in business. Foot pedal assembly is on. The handle is here where it's supposed to be. Beautiful. Now we're about to test the light ring. If you remember what I said before, the cable in which you connect is very important because that will affect how it lights up when you're rotating. Kind of funny that it works that way, but it does work that way. Now it says 1 and 2 over here, but unfortunately there's nothing that corresponds to 1 and 2 on the receiving end. Is there, and there is not. So we're just gonna have to test it out. Let's make the assumption that this is 2. Okay, black to black, and the same here. Okay. Alright, and that's in as well. Okay. We're beeping because we're tipped over. Let's try that again. Okay. And we have lights. That's really good. And as you see, the orientation is correct. Forward, backwards, right? Forward, backward, forward, backward. Good. This is correct. Okay, we're gonna turn it off. And we'll snap this all back together while being careful not to pinch any of this cabling. This will now tuck nicely back in that crevice. Okay. There are little gullies here. You can kind of snake these along in. And it just helps with the wire management a bit. Okay, one more. Good. Oh, whoa, 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 come on. There we go, good. Just so you don't have wires flailing about in there. And we're just gonna kind of lightly go around and start clicking these in. And we're just gonna like that. And we are in. Oh, got another click. That's good. All right. And that's it. We have our handle back. And I'm really happy about that. Let's see if I can tilt that up a bit. There we go. We have our handle back. It was kind of a pain in the neck to walk around holding it like this. At least now I can walk around and I've got something to carry it with. Plus it looks a lot cooler not, you know, having this void here. Everything's good. So, was it a hard upgrade? No, it was a challenge. It was a bit of a pain in the neck because of clearance issues and whatnot. But if you take your time with it, watch this video, and go step by step with it, you'll be okay. A couple of pieces of advice here. If you are in a hurry to go somewhere, don't start this project. I want to say start to finish, I probably spent about 2 hours down in my basement working on this. I took my time with it. I had never done this before. I did have a part once, do the tube, but that was it. As for the handle, basic tool set, some Allen keys, good Allen keys. I've got 2 sets, one's cheaper than the other. And some of those were torqued so tight, and then you had the Loctite on there as well. I ended up stripping my Allen key. I'd rather strip the Allen key than the actual hardware itself. But that's that. Yeah, so set aside probably about 2 hours, unless you're a little more mechanically inclined than I am, or you just have better tools and you're willing to split this thing in 2 pieces. If I had split it in 2 pieces, I think I could have taken the whole top part of the frame off, and then I could have used like an actual screwdriver, and I would have had those bolts out in no time. But because I had the Allen key and I can only go like 1/4 of an inch at a time, reseat it, 1/4 of an inch, reseat it over and over again, it took forever. But needless to say, it's done, and that's it. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll gladly answer them. Check out my other videos. I have tons of other Ninebot videos. You see me fall on my ass a few times with my Ninebot. You can see where I got those road rash and these scars here from. And that's it. Good luck, have fun, be safe.